It all started in the village of Chief. It is a very quiet and peaceful place, which can be characterized by two words. It is harmony and tranquility. A man was reading the morning paper and heard someone approaching his house. He wasn't expecting anyone, so he wondered who it was. It turns out, he's got a little girl who wants to show him something and ask him some questions. She brought some sort of document with her and asked him to sign at the bottom right below the text. The signature would begin to cancel the donation her father wanted her to make. The man laughed for some reason. He wasn't surprised and seemed clearly in no hurry to sign anything. But why? It was a little unclear. Suddenly, so he decided to explain. Her father had promised to do this a long time ago. So it's impossible to undo the promise. Especially, he can't do it in his place. This year canceling donations, a great rarity. Suddenly, if he gets a chance to help, he will definitely do so. But no promises yet. The girl understands everything, but hope does not leave her. She is sure that something can be done about it, because as usual, it sounds hard in words, but in reality, it can be easier. It's hard enough for him to say no to such a sweet little girl, and she's asking for something he doesn't even have the authority to do. In the end, not even 5 minutes later, he just couldn't refuse her, and still gave in. The man has no idea what to do now. But most importantly, the child is happy and ran away full of joy. She always knew that irresistible charm makes the impossible possible. And now, the main thing is not to be disappointed and believe in the miracle that he will succeed. The girl was afraid of only one thing, how her father would react. But in any case, he is a kind man and is unlikely to yell at her, especially since she just wants to help and has not done anything wrong. She feels insanely sorry for the money he decided to donate, while not realizing what might be next, in case he would later regret a lot and not be able to earn as much. She thinks that instead of giving away money they don't have much of already, they should save up to buy land, build a house, find laborers, and make their lives easier. She wants to take care of him forever. This person is the most dear and beloved, whom she will never leave in trouble, and will help, even if no one asked her to do so. This time the girl went through the forest and accidentally met two men who for some reason did not pass by and paid attention to her beautiful dress, which already looked a little suspicious. The young lady was at once wary, though so far so good. She told me that it was a gift from her father and had become a favorite in her closet. One could just pass on, but the girl took a chance and said hello. She introduced herself as Sienna and even told a little about herself. Her eyes like round pieces of pure green meadow. Her hair is as soft as the best quality silk. Even her cheeks look like candy. She considers herself very beautiful and is not shy to say so. Her self-esteem is enviable. Although she's really beautiful, sometimes such self-love repulses those around her. When she hears criticism that she talks about herself too often, she responds that she can't help it because it's true. She's the best and most beautiful. Is the world of a novel called The Life of Melody, which she has only half read, a fantastic story of the journey of a holy melody. It's a pity, but in this world she's not a saint or a princess. She's taken on the role of an ordinary girl, with a life in a quiet village with her father. At first the adaptation to the child's body was terrible, but now she increasingly feels her mind merging with this life. She is beginning to feel comfortable and complains about almost nothing. She still has feelings that the creature who gave her this life deliberately added complications in the form of some health restrictions, so she wouldn't behave too inappropriately. No matter how much the girl tries to grow up, she does not succeed. Her voice is still very childish, although a lot of time has passed. In any case, she tries to enjoy this age, because it is still unknown what awaits her next. Maybe things will get worse. The time is nearing evening. There must be meat dishes for dinner tonight. We have only to wait for father, who should be back soon. Sienna misses him absolutely always. Without him, she feels lonely, and even if friends show up, they still aren't as comfortable as him. Meanwhile, she was just sitting on the fence looking out for her father as some men in uniform and armor approached the house. It was scary at first, but they approached her politely, and it turns out they need to talk to one of the adults. They are looking for a man with black hair and red eyes. This description is very similar to her father's appearance. The main thing is to understand what purpose they want to see him for and whether it is worth telling them anything at all. These people seem suspicious and apparently in danger. Sienna didn't think long and replied that the adults aren't here and aren't likely to return anytime soon. Usually kids at that age don't understand what's what. But Sienna is a little smarter at this point and has been taught that if someone asks where her father is, She should either cheat or run back into the house and check to make sure all the locks are closed. She should never tell the truth, give her exact address, or tell anything about her loved ones. Strangers can use this information to their advantage, and it is important to know about this from the very childhood. Considering how much she loves him and tries to help him even at that age, naturally she didn't hesitate to do the right thing and not tell them anything. The father should be back within half an hour, so long as they don't cross paths and leave before he gets back. And also so long as they don't come back here at all and try to follow the man around a corner somewhere. They have so many problems in their family already, and all because of his immense kindness. His father is the kind of good man who is even willing to take on other people's debt. But did he really get into something serious to attract such people? The knights aren't going anywhere, but she's not going to give up either. She's already thinking about how to chase them away and stop being nervous. If you'd think they'd hear her, turn around and go looking further, then no, one laughed, and told me they'd confirmed the location a long time ago, and were definitely not wrong. The girl took a chance and said again that she didn't know any man with dark hair and red eyes. They didn't even have neighbors like that, so she couldn't help and asked not to be disturbed. She looked at them and realized that nothing had worked. No one was going to believe her words since it was clear to everyone she could just defend her father and wouldn't take their side. When she no longer had the strength to pretend, had to confess that she was afraid of them, to be in front of her many knights, and she alone, a little child who could not even run away in case of anything. The knights started to get cute. They said they wouldn't hurt her and everything would be fine, as long as Sienna didn't cheat anyone, of course. It made her even more confused and nervous. The worst that could happen was if her father came back early and they captured the two of them. Him because they were looking for him in the first place, and her for lying to him. She can't leave now, or they won't let her do it. Some time passed. One of them got tired of standing in one place. He even offered to turn around and retreat for a while. At this point, Sienna finally relaxed and started to hope they would do it. And maybe she can once again save her father and prove to herself that nothing is impossible for her. And suddenly, the thing she didn't want to happen most of all happens. The voice of her father, eager to see and embrace his beloved daughter, resounds throughout the estate. He has come at a bit of a bad time and doesn't even realize it. The man doesn't expect any danger at home, but she is much closer than he realizes. He starts looking for her all over the yard. He's been all over the house, but he can't see Sienna anywhere. His father is so tired he doesn't have the energy to walk anymore. He doesn't understand why she doesn't respond and gets angry, because it looks like his daughter is just playing hide and seek and watching him from some bush. But unfortunately, it's more serious than that. And it would be better if she actually played order with him instead of all of this. And then begins the most interesting thing. He saw a lot of people in armor and barely saw his daughter near them. Conscience does not allow you to run away, and of course, had to come up, calm her down, and sort it out. He asked what was going on here. What he was most interested in was whether no one had hurt his daughter. It turns out he would be on her, and she was afraid for him, and anything could happen now. The girl became ashamed that she assured that she did not know such a person by all these characteristics, and yet this person turns out to be her father. Despite this whole situation, the knights introduced themselves and didn't act too rude. They calmly explained that they had come to send a message to the first Prince Matthias, the point of which was to finish their little game and return now. The girl couldn't believe what she had just heard, and from the looks of it, they wanted her father back to where he had recently left. The Duchy of Mermaud, the most notorious place in the Empire, a place where destruction and all manner of horrible deeds are committed as if there were nothing wrong with it. Sienna is sure these people are very wrong. There's no way her father is connected to this place, though maybe she just doesn't know much about it. And then the last thing you'd expect happened. The man listened to them and promised he'd be back shortly. Sienna thought she had just heard it. It couldn't be. How could he say that? It would mean that he would leave her alone. She can't even imagine how he might like it there, and how he might give it all up for a hellish place that's unpleasant and disgusting to even think about. If everything is exactly as in the original story, the Mermaud family will meet its end and nothing good will come of it. The main villain of the family, who is despised and feared by everyone, even in their family, the power struggle never stopped. And no wonder you could hear of someone's death on a daily basis. Many people have the feeling that even if you think about them or get close to the place, misfortunes appear by themselves. Finally, a few days passed. The father could not leave his daughter in the village and offered to go with him. She had no choice but to agree and set foot in the house. He reassured her the whole way, and told her that it wasn't as scary as it seemed. That supposedly you shouldn't believe the rumors. And if he was taking her with him, then everything would be fine and safe. Even though nothing bad has happened yet, every detail of this place is very frightening. Even the plants in the yard seem somehow dangerous and unusual. It is more or less comfortable to be in her father's arms, but she is afraid to imagine what will happen if he goes away for even half a day and she is left here alone. No matter how much you want to meet someone here, sooner or later it's going to happen, so you have to be prepared. A man understands how difficult it is for her here, and even though he himself is no less worried and tries to show that there is nothing to worry about, and she is worried for nothing. His face is still smiling, but the girl is just a little bit more and will go crazy. She does not like absolutely everything that is happening, what she sees and what awaits her in the future. The biggest problem is that fate can't be changed, and her father is in danger. Even though he believes otherwise, Sienna is the only one responsible for saving him and herself. It's very hard to accept all this, knowing that only she knows what's in store for them. Even if she tells her father, he'll just think she's overreacting and is just nervous for nothing. You can't change his mind. You'd have to try very hard to at least reduce the chance of his death, and that's not going to be easy. As a child, it is difficult to do anything serious, especially in this environment, without knowing whether it makes sense to try to change anything at all. They had already found a room with a huge table and started waiting, as if someone should come and keep them company. The man won't stop distracting his daughter as if she doesn't understand anything at all. Only in reality, the only person who doesn't know or understand anything is him. Since no one was there yet, he began to think how to rest after such a long trip, because he was tired himself, and he thought that his daughter must be even more tired than before. The problem is that if Sienna wants to sleep, he'll have to be with her the whole time. She won't fall asleep, and it will be like this for at least a couple of days, maybe more. In this world, Sienna lived an ordinary rural life and never thought things would turn out this way. Unfortunately, she's not old enough to have any influence on it yet. She sadly recalls all those beautiful moments and realizes that this will not happen again soon. Then the girl did not even imagine that she was the happiest child and did not think that all so easily and quickly cut off, literally in 1 century. Her father cooked some delicious meals every day, spent all his free time with her, replaced everyone and even friends. She enjoyed every second of her life and is very grateful to him for that. Thanks to her father, she had the best childhood. It's just a pity that it's already over. It came very quickly and early to grow up and there's nothing to be done about it. That's her fate. If there's any hint or sign from the universe that it's possible to get it all back, it'll do everything and more. Nothing will be impossible for her, because fatherhood and happiness are her raison d'etre, and she'll have to fight for it. She knows these doors very well. At some point they will open and criminals will walk in. One can only pray and hope that the father is ready for this and knew what he was agreeing to do. If you remember it's a second life, it's less scary because it might not be the last. And also, if a man is so confident, maybe he knows more and realizes he's in control. Lastly, he asked only one thing, never to doubt him, because when a man sees fear in the eyes of his child, it is very offensive and would like to see the opposite of that. The girl answered a little differently than he expected. She promised that from now on she would be his most important helper and protector, no matter how it sounded to him. These were not childish promises, but in the future, backed up by action words. The girl realizes how he'll react. She may laugh or not believe it, but she'll do it. He can think whatever he wants, and she just smiled and decided for herself. She's not a kid anymore, and will defend them on a level like she's much more than a year old. Her father never ceases to admire her confidence, her drive, but still, counts only on himself. And in fact, any other adult in his place would react and think the same way. It would be hard to imagine if the man thanked her and really started to count on the child's help in all seriousness. Perhaps it might not have been so bad. But her father is too kind for this world. Such a man is, as if unable to protect himself or her. This ominous house will destroy them stealthily and very quickly. No one will even have time to foresee what could happen at any given moment. Had her father been with someone a tyrant or a man who spared no one? In ordinary life, she wouldn't have liked it. But now such qualities wouldn't have hurt her. Who knew they had such a future ahead of them? And also, the girl has no idea what he might have been doing here before for anyone to need to bring him back. They were doing so well that it was impossible to think of a way to be any happier. She used to love to go out to dinner with him and cook different new dishes and experiment in the kitchen. All of that has disappeared and turned into an incomprehensible thing. Now it will be scary to even try anything in this house. They could be poisoned at any moment, and to refuse to eat would also be suspicious, and they will not last long hungry. In just one day, there were a lot of problems that seemed to be simply not solvable. Sienna did not want to grow up so quickly and learn what is real life. Somewhere everywhere there is danger, traps, and pitfalls. It seems as if the man is not as nervous as his child. He doesn't even realize what she has inside. She doesn't feel like a child, but a father, and head of the family who needs to protect everyone. The girl doesn't feel a bit of reassurance, protection, and everything else from her father that she would really want in such situations. He either doesn't worry about it and knows exactly what's in store for him, he has a plan and strength, or he just naively thinks everything is fine and nothing bad can be waiting for them here. And in the meantime, some woman who doesn't even look trustworthy has already come down the hallway to them. I wonder who she is and what she's here for. The atmosphere is too intense. You can't relax for a second, especially Sienna. Surprisingly, the girl had not seen her grandmother until that day, and it turns out it was her. The man said hello to her mom and told her how nice it was that they had met again. It turns out they've come to his parents' house, but judging by the woman's reaction, she's obviously unhappy. And she says a phrase that makes it all clear. She's not his birth mom and really doesn't like it when he calls her that. Supposedly, it's better to address her as the esteemed Duchess, Raquella. The girl felt the tense atmosphere and suddenly heard the real name of this woman and was a little surprised, or rather, very much surprised. Duchess Raquella, ruler of the Upper Tower. In her youth, she destroyed all other wizards, also trained and occupied the tower. Among wizards up to the 12th rank took places up to the 4th, and all thanks to an extraordinary talent. According to the original story, she is now treated as an elderly person, but she was once the head of a villainous noble house and no one dared call her that. The first thing the girl thought of was to gain her trust, take advantage of it and try to escape, or better yet, with her father. It's not going to be easy, but it's worth a try. It's going to be very difficult with this person, but there's no other option. It's strange. First they called him here, and now they're treating him as if he's the one who asked to stay in this house or did something wrong. And from the outside, it looks like that. She talks too rudely, reminds you of the rules of the house and acts like they are total strangers to her and she didn't invite them in. Sienna is more and more convinced that nothing good awaits them. The woman doesn't even hide it, and it's amazing how her father still doesn't want to leave here and come home. They began to feel as if they were trapped, and all the fears they had seen on the way in the carriage were being confirmed by the minute. It's getting upset too soon anyway. Maybe the enemy looks very intimidating. That doesn't mean it's impossible to deal with it. The two of them are here together, and if things get too bad, the man won't stand for it and will definitely come up with someone. At least that's what the girl is really hoping for. Some time has passed and very suddenly the man pulls out some things, says that this is her present. Here are some new clothes, so to speak, a new life. Accordingly, there should be new clothes. He's thought about it very well, because nothing should remind her of her past life. The child will be sad and even more upset that things have gotten worse. Meanwhile, as they had not yet said hello and introduced themselves to each other properly, the man turned his attention to his daughter and asked to greet her. Even though I didn't really want to, I had to say hello and do it first. Sienna wasn't upset that she hadn't met her grandmother in her whole life, and that was even better. It was scary to imagine what it would be like if she had to visit her for the summer like other families did. Sienna tries to sound nice, but inside she can't stop thinking about where to start so she can get home as soon as possible. She is so much alarmed by her grandmother's name, though not her own. But still, she will have to live with her for some time, and it is important to know as much information about her as possible. She certainly had thoughts that it might be better to stay home and let her father go off alone, but at the same time, she couldn't leave him either. She definitely couldn't have done it without him and couldn't sleep. Apparently, it's better to be together already, even in such horrible conditions and surroundings. The woman only heard the name of her granddaughter, as she immediately asked to change the subject and suggested to talk about it later, as now it is much more important to talk about other things, that is, about succession to the throne. But he didn't like it very much. In his opinion, it's something they can talk about at any other time, and it's much more important to spend time with their family, which they have never done normally. And if there is such an opportunity, someone should prioritize properly and at least pretend that she was waiting for them, and not invite them only for business reasons. Even though they've been talking for an hour, it still doesn't make sense. So either her father is hiding something from her, Or he's so naive that he came here without a plan and doesn't know what's going on. The woman acts like she's the villain and the man is the same. Only he doesn't show it in front of his child. It's like she knows a lot more about him than Sienna does. Nothing is clear from their words. The girl feels like a third extra, like an empty place to be lied to and not told the truth. And when the father began to get very angry, the girl realized that now there could be something interesting and perhaps something will be revealed. Thus, it will be possible to understand what is going on here and what is hidden from her. It turns out the man knew what the Duchess hated the most was being interrupted and not being allowed to say something to the end. He did it on purpose so he wouldn't be silent and see how she really felt about him. How much she is willing to hold back and control her behavior will tell how much she respects him, and if she respects him at all. Sienna was already tired of sitting in one place. She got down on the floor and promised that he could take it easy and she would be back soon. The man was worried. He sensed that she didn't just want to go out for a few minutes, she was clearly up to something. Since he can't run after her, I just had to imagine what she was up to and how it would turn out. It turns out she didn't want to go anywhere. She just ran up to the woman and asked if she could call her grandmother. Because if she got it right, she was her father's mom, so she was her grandmother too. The girl tried to make the appearance of a very sweet child, as if she didn't understand anything and was very glad to meet you. It was necessary for the woman not to see anything suspicious in her and perceive her as an ordinary child. At this time, she will have the opportunity to do something and not to attract unnecessary attention to herself. She simply will not be controlled or suspected of something. Strangely, the woman didn't look in her direction for a second, pretending as if she didn't notice anything. The girl stood to the last and waited for her to do so. It can't be so bad that Grandma doesn't even try to pay attention to her and at least seem a little kinder. Sienna didn't give up. She came even closer to her and started to beg for her hands. This is the kind of test after which it will be possible to say with certainty what kind of relationship between them will be next. The girl is not for a second sad. She looks at her very cute, laughs, and even purposely embarrassed to blush her cheeks. In the end, nothing worked. As soon as a woman hears herself being called a grandmother, it makes her even more angry. I wonder if she'll say anything, or if she'll continue to be so cold that it'll become intolerable. Instead of smiling back, hugging her somehow and reciprocating, the woman starts telling who she is and what her status is, and most importantly, that she is not someone who can be called a grandmother without permission. Really want to get angry to get away from her, but the girl held back. She just stopped smiling, but still stayed close. The role must be played to the end. In any other way, no other way. In any case, she has at least a little succeeded in diverting the woman's attention from her father. It is not easy to communicate with a man who talks only about his status and for whom nothing exists but his own interests. But this is just the beginning, and no one plans to give up. I wonder how it's going to end, if some people are going to mess up and how they're all going to get along. Instead of a warm welcome, they were treated as if she was seeing them for the first time or had hated them all her life. Sienna had to apologize to her. She even cried a little, upset, but that was only on the surface. Inside, she didn't care at all that she had offended anyone. And the father just sits on the sidelines and doesn't do anything. It's like he doesn't notice how she's being treated and doesn't want to get involved. Sienna just thought of that as he immediately got up from his seat, calmed her down, took her in his arms, and promised that it wouldn't happen again. She wouldn't have to humiliate herself in front of anyone in this house. She admitted that it was very hurtful, and also has no idea what she did wrong to not even be hugged. The man began to hint that if this kept up, they wouldn't stay here and would go home so fast she wouldn't even notice it. You'd think there would be a lot of outrage, but Grandma kept quiet and let them leave. I don't think she was ashamed. She just didn't want to waste her energy on some pointless conflict. And the acting didn't end there. Sienna pretended to treat her well anyway and said goodbye as if she wanted to see her again. It was as if she did not notice the evil on her part and behaved like a real child who had not learned the world and did not recognize who was who. They turned their gazes over. It was unusual to see that the woman wasn't angry. It was like she was regretting something. But maybe it was just a mask, so they wouldn't leave soon, at least not try to do so. The father is very concerned that his daughter is a mild girl who has done nothing wrong to anyone, and she is already disrespected and treated like a stranger here. But what you can expect is that the woman becomes them and starts to remember the time when Sienna was born. In those times, everything was different, and no one knew what kind of relationship between them would be in the future, or rather, that it would deteriorate so much. The son replies that if she thinks she can change the situation so easily, then no. She should have behaved normally from the beginning, instead of trying to fix everything at the very last moment. She was smiling, wanting to talk. She was cold, as if she just wasn't interested. She just smiled in response and reminded him that he used to not be as bold as he was now. She remembered him as a shy boy who could only please others to his own detriment. But he doesn't fall for it. Also reminded that people grow up. Times change, people get better like him and worse like her. Her answer was brief. That was the reason why she used to use him as a pawn. It was easy then and harder now. But since he's already in this house, he should answer the question if anything has changed since then, or if he's just trying to make himself think it has. If he's so smart, matured, and gained from grace, why didn't he refuse and still come to a man he should hate and avoid? She's trying to bring in the fact that he was just as weak as he was. If years have passed, it doesn't always mean a person has grown up in some way. He's the same little boy she knows, and is sure the only thing that has changed about him is age. They both realize that they can argue about it for a very long time, and in any case will have to come to some compromise and opinion. After such words, he has no reason to stay. But for some reason, he's still here. There are two ways things really are. Either she doesn't know yet what he's accomplished in that time, or the woman is right and she'll use him again. It can be considered that the fate of each of them depends on what he answered to all these words. And he said the following, that they plan to lose to no one. Soon everyone will know who he has become and what he is capable of. Everyone will answer for his actions, and it will come much faster than one can imagine. The woman starts to change the subject. She started talking about some training and asked to get ready, because it will be tomorrow already. The conversation came to an end. The grandmother promised that tomorrow 2 helpers would come to Sienna. And of course, the girl imagined that it would look something like this. They would smile, help in everything, and it would be very pleasant to communicate with them. They will cook any food in unlimited quantities, make sure she always has clean things to wear, to make her life wonderful, to take charge of any business as is the case in any other house with a staff. But actually, in her situation, it's a little different. Some angry girl who's not happy with her job and talks like they're enemies. It was very unpleasant. Better to be without helpers than to see faces like that every day. They don't look nice. They look like men in women's clothes and don't inspire any trust. It's even scary to be in the same room with them, let alone ask them to cook a meal or bring tea. They would be scary not to even try or take anything from them. They of course said they were glad to meet you, but it sounded a bit intimidating. As expected. In this house, even the maids are as evil as their mistresses. The first thing the girl thought was that she wanted to close his eyes so she wouldn't have to look into them. It was like she was losing energy. Those eyes made her feel strange sensations. She'd never had that before. Things are even worse than she thought. Sienna imagined a normal house, just with people who would ignore her. In reality, things are completely different, as if things couldn't get any worse already. Meanwhile, the 2 men are already leading her across some small bridge between 2 buildings in the courtyard, looking suspicious, but she doesn't resist. It's a pity my father isn't around, because it's still unknown what these helpers have been ordered to do. Sienna doesn't know what's where here, so she's very scared. The servants walk behind and look like a safety net in case the child wants to run away, so they will catch her quickly and can control her every move. She already dislikes very much what is going on. Everywhere is dark. There is no coziness. The atmosphere is escalating every second. Not every adult can feel at ease, let alone a child. It took a long time to walk. The girl's feet were sore, and she asked if it would be a good idea for any of them to carry her in their arms, if no one minded it. She apologized if it looked too ugly on her part and explained that if someone didn't want to do it, they could go to that place tomorrow. The 2 of them first laughed and then reminded her that one should not relax. One should think about one's health, and there is no place for lazy people in this house. They've never felt sorry for themselves, and they're not going to feel sorry for others. Sienna is almost passing out already, but no one cares about that. The girl realized that she cannot expect help from anyone and should rely only on herself. These helpers were only for appearance, but in fact you have to do everything yourself. No one even remembered that she is still a child and cannot so easily climb to a high floor without training. It turns out that this is her new room, which was allocated to her by the mistress. First of all, it's a huge floor, and every time you have to go down and up again, it's very uncomfortable. And also, it's terribly dirty, full of dust, cobwebs, and even has one nest of birds. If she knew what was waiting for her here, she wouldn't even come upstairs. It's no good. I wonder what her father would say to that. She hasn't seen his room or what conditions he'll be living in. It'll be weird if either of them have it much better or worse. Her head is literally exploding. There are definitely better rooms in this house, and she was just put here on purpose to point out her place. A nice smile didn't help, and tears didn't help either. The lady of the house tests their stress tolerance, and in literally every situation. First, she must get out of this room and try to get better conditions. If she stays here overnight, she could lose her health and suffocate in the dust. As soon as she touched the doorknob, she had some obscure yellow marks on her hands. If only it wasn't dangerous. The door won't open, which means we have to think of something else. If there's a window open in the room, that's her chance to get out of here. Strangely, Sienna is even smiling, and even in this situation, unlike some, she doesn't look like she hates the whole world. How nice it is to remember those times when there were no problems in her life. She had a cozy, bright, and spacious room. There were many toys, and even more attention from her father. He told her stories, and everything was just wonderful. Now it's the other way around. Their lives are in danger. They live in a house where everyone is against them, and the rooms are so horrible that it's better to sleep outside. These maids, who can hardly even be called assistants, they're more like those who are used to scare away crows in the street. Their appearance makes one wish for the best, and one wonders how they were even hired. Is it really the landlady's pleasure to look at them and see them every day in her room and beyond? Even now, they're taking a bath, and they're discussing how they can find time to work out, build muscle mass, and get stronger. They are clearly doing something wrong in their lives and in the wrong job. In general, the main thing is that so far, they have not harmed anyone and are quietly carrying out their duties. It turns out that they constantly talk about different topics related to sports and nutrition. The two of them dream of buying one food supplement, which quickly helps to get bigger and bigger. It's the fastest way to look the way you want, but it doesn't work the other way around. The supplement only adds weight due to its caloric content and special ingredients. No one noticed the young mistress had already entered the bathroom and accidentally overheard their private conversation. The girl apologized for interrupting. She was just getting really cold standing in the hallway, and it seemed like she should have been dialed in a long time ago. She couldn't wait to dip into the warm water and relax for just a few minutes. She thanked them and stepped into the tub as if for the last time in her life. Sienna can't get used to the fact that it's not men but women. She tries to think about it without anyone noticing that she's embarrassed by it. The servant started trying to wash her head so fast that the foam started to get in her eyes and ears. The girl asked for slower, but it didn't work. They are never gentle, attentive, and hardly listen to anyone but the headmistress of the... Sienna thought it would be better if she took a bath herself, without their help, because that would only make things worse. They didn't help. They only made things worse. The only good thing is that they got it done very quickly, and the remaining time can be spent relaxing. There is time to go back to the room in peace, and even have a hot tea after a hot bath. That is what is needed. Meanwhile, the father is near. He has come from a very important mission and will finally see his beloved daughter soon. He cares that she's fine, that she likes everything, that no one's rude to her. But as for her room, that's very interesting to see. Hardly likely to tolerate such a thing, though his room is likely no different. The man is already on the second floor. He speeds up as if sensing that there is much to learn. He had heard a lot about the maids in this tower, so he was worried all day that he wouldn't get an unpleasant surprise at the end of the day. Father enters the room, but instead of his daughter, he sees two assistants standing very close to each other, as if hiding the... He immediately had horrible thoughts, but the girl just wanted to appear unexpectedly and hid behind their backs. She screamed across the room and said everything was fine, and of course she'd been waiting for him all this time. The helpers barely caught her. She jumped so high she could have fallen and hit her head hard. Wouldn't have had a father in the room. It's unlikely they would have done exactly the same thing, but they already are as it is, and everyone realizes it. Sienna misses him so much that she wants to talk to him all night and not go to sleep. And also, she's glad the day is over. It had lasted somehow too long. Much longer than usual. Nothing bad had happened today. At least she had expected the worst. She ran to him as if she hadn't seen him in years. You could see at once how much they loved each other. And really, there was nothing more beautiful than the fact that they found the strength to smile, even in such a situation. He after a hard day, and she after being here without him. Some time passed. The man asked her to say goodbye to the maids and suggested that she go to his room. Sienna only looked in their direction, and he did the same, only he made a gesture that those two understood the first time around. It turns out he understands perfectly well and warns him that if anything, they'll both be responsible for every scar or bad mood his daughter gets. Naturally, all understood each other very well, and the daughter continues to think that the father is a very kind and most generous man in this world. All this time, he just hasn't shown or told her about his business, where he is completely different, the way she has never seen him once and probably never will. At least he will try very hard not to let that happen. He always wanted to be a mom, caring and the best father for her. He kept the tradition and told the tale even now. He doesn't even have the strength to open his eyes, but for her sake he did. It was the sweetest moment of the whole day and really want it to last forever. Now it's interesting to find out what her father is hiding from her and what he really does when he's away from home. The next day has come. The training room in the Miramod mansion. You don't even have to think about who's been here since the morning. It's all so obvious. The thing is, the girl heard yesterday how they want to get one weight gain supplement, and this morning she did a little surprise. The maids are so happy that they apologized for all the bad things they did on her, like purposely not cleaning her room and trying to scare her when they were alone together. Sienna wished them well and ran to take a walk around the grounds while she had time. She didn't have time to do that yesterday. Besides, sitting in her room didn't feel like it either. She had not noticed that there were usually so many people here. Though many came as on an excursion, nothing portended trouble. When suddenly everyone somehow start looking at her at the same time as if she was different. It was a bit uncomfortable, but the girl didn't get scared before time. She tried to talk to some of them and even make friends. Everyone was silent and did nothing at first, and then asked them to stay away and not to look in their direction. They don't react like that to other kids, but to her for some reason, too aggressively. She begins to hear horrible words from all sides, people seeming to conspire and pull away from her. All these kids are seeing her for the first time in their lives. Sienna is no different than any of them, and they already have so much hate for her at first sight. Not every adult can handle that kind of pressure. She even here feels superfluous and regretted even going out on this day. She would have chosen a time when all of them would be gone. It's times like this that you really miss your dad, but he's very far away at work and has no idea that your daughter's morning has been a mess from the start. Everything started out very well. It's not even lunchtime. She's in no mood. Everyone is discussing not only her, but her father as well. But she only has the courage to talk about it when he's not there. There would hardly have been so much noise if he had been here somewhere and could have heard everything, both about himself and his daughter. The only thing worse than that is if they don't give her a pass, surround her and make fun of her, or worse, make her do something. Sienna wishes he would come up to her and hug her and chase away all these little villains who don't even know who they are laughing at. The girl doesn't deserve that, and maybe could be a good friend to some of them. Some time ago, when they were always together, Sienna knew he would always protect her, no matter what happened. But now she's all alone, and she has a choice. Just walk in silence or let her know she's not someone to treat like that. Ideally, if someone apologizes. Sienna walked up to the first person she saw and asked what she did to him to get him to react like that. You could have just walked by and not even looked in her direction. All three of them started. They felt more confident, and the girl is alone. There are no parents with them to influence their behavior, although it is unlikely that it would have made any difference. People discussing her hair color, eye color, and the worst part is that she'll be alone forever and never be happy. The girl thought that really, if something happened to her father, she simply could not stand to be in such a cruel society, which did not even need an excuse to call someone names, humiliate, or make fun of them. Suddenly, some time passes, everyone is standing in the same place, and there was a very loud scream. The maids came, and apparently, the most interesting thing is just beginning. They scared the kids so badly that they almost fainted and were already ready to apologize on their knees. That's how anyone in their shoes would react, although they deserve someone to calm them down. If their parents don't do it, other people will. In the end, there was a huge uproar and more people came to see it. For them, it's like a performance or a show. It was unclear if it was a passerby or their father. The man joined in and began to defend the boys. He covered them with his back and did not allow them to be yelled at. Sienna said she was just out for a walk, and they started hurting her and making fun of her father, which is very ugly and shows a lack of parenting. The man was so engrossed he didn't notice he had raised his hand on the girl. He doesn't care who her grandmother, father is. He wants to protect those on his side. Sienna didn't have time to react. She was already prepared to endure the pain and walk around with a bruised face for weeks when suddenly nothing happened. One of the assistants defended her new mistress. She clarified herself so much that she was ready to punish this impudent man and make sure that from this day on, the man would be afraid to approach the young lady and apologize on his knees. They will not tolerate such behavior, especially knowing full well that the girl is right. She is not guilty of anything and deserves help. If the first day she saw them, she would have been told that these two would help her. She would have just laughed and never believed him. But it turns out that everything is possible here. It can happen. In the end, everyone went about their business very quickly. Nobody touched the girl or even looked in her direction. She is very grateful to everyone who is on my side, and glad that this situation will be remembered for a long time. At the very least, she now knows that when her father is not home, there are those who can be counted on besides him, and that can't help but make her happy. It was good to be able to take a quiet walk, breathe the fresh air, not be afraid of anyone, and enjoy the bird song. Her good mood was beginning to return, although after the situation, a little unpleasant residue remained after all. She was very suddenly bored of walking and wanted to go to classes. The girl had not done anything useful for a long time, and this moment had come. Today is the day when a new acquaintance awaits her. Sienna didn't count on it, but she meets Leonardo, who bears little resemblance to the others she's seen so far. It turns out that he had seen her several times and even observed her on purpose. She had long been interested in his attention, and surprisingly, today was the day they had met quite by chance in class. Very few kids come here. Not everyone is interested in learning, and it's not surprising. It's just a pity he's not the kind of person it's safe to talk to. She'll understand, but sooner or later, she'll be very disappointed. Leonardo is a very well-mannered boy. He is intelligent and polite. He has been interested in science since his childhood, and instead of spending his free time actively, he comes here and reads books until the evening. He was not shy and asked her name at once. He wondered how often she would come here, for he had not seen Sienna here before. He thought he knew roughly what family she was from and even remembered her last name, but he decided to make sure and ended up being right. At first, the two pretended to be busy in the fall and tried not to look at each other, but it was getting harder and harder by the minute. The boy looks mysterious and naturally handsome. Unlike the others, much more comfortable with him. And perhaps that is the only reason she is so interested in him, actually, as he is in her. They don't know each other and have no idea what to latch onto and talk about. Everyone has so much pride that they don't want to start first, so as not to seem too intrusive. Leonardo is used to other girls who don't have a normal upbringing, who think they are better than the rest, and even hurt those who want to get to know them. Sienna was like that. He liked her a lot because she was the only normal person he'd ever met in his life. Usually kids can talk over toys, some outings, sweets, but they talked about themselves and communicated on serious topics, as if they had brought such information to each other at once. It was very calm, pleasant, not like the others. Leonardo doesn't want to say goodbye to her, or at least not for long. The girl wants to see him soon too, as she's busy for now, and then she wouldn't mind getting to know him better. In general, they are very similar to each other, in character, values, and life challenges. They know how to listen and support, even at such a young age, understand much more and behave differently than others do. The girl is afraid of being disappointed, but she has no one here to be friends with, and he's the only one who seems harmless. And yet she has a suspicion that he may not be as good as he seems at first glance. Harmless people often turn out to be the cruelest and show up at the most unexpected moment. It's important to keep that in mind, especially since she already knows someone here wants to hurt her family. Without approaching her or her father, it is simply impossible to do this. Accordingly, it is necessary to look out for those who try to make friends with her, get acquainted, or try to be near her. It's a very good thing she remembered it in time. Otherwise, it could have been too late. There wouldn't have been time to even fix it. She decided that she would communicate with this boy, but she would not tell him too much about herself, so that he could not use it in his favor or against her later on. Of course, it will be very good if she is wrong about him and the new friend does not intend to harm her, but thinking ahead will not be superfluous either. Her father is far more important to her than some temporary friendship with an unknown person she's known for a few hours. Meanwhile, some time has passed and suddenly, without warning, two people come to her. One she remembers very well from yesterday, but the other she sees for the first time. I wonder why they're smiling and looking like they've come for revenge. Someone that low introduced himself as an officer, and it sounds a bit unambiguous. Why would he come to her room? For the only thing they had in common was that they had first met in the street, and that not of their own accord, but simply because it happened so. Sienna doesn't understand what they're doing here. It's class time, and they walked up to the blackboard like someone gave them permission to do so. The girl clarified what their names were, but they replied that it didn't matter. She just had to do what she was told and memorize some information. She hated it so much she wanted to deal with the situation, but she just ignored it. Suddenly, she wanted to know what the level of education of children in this world was, and why it all seemed so basic to her, as if it wasn't even worth paying attention to. When Leonardo came into the study, she glanced casually in his direction and read what he had in his notes. Now they are learning the multiplication table. Although the girl learned it last year, it can be both good and bad. On the one hand, it will be boring, but on the other hand, it never hurts to repeat the forgotten and learn even better. Sienna thought she'd be interested here, that she'd spend all night and day figuring out discipline, but it's so easy that she won't even have to try. She has spent a lot of time studying in her time, and maybe if she looks at the situation from a different perspective, she will have more time to help her father and herself. There is something much more important than the multiplication table here. It's about their lives, and that's the first thing to think about. She hadn't yet found out what her father actually did and what his work was related to. Earlier, the girl had imagined that he worked in some office, maybe as a security guard, anything but something serious or even more dangerous. She's even willing to believe that he's performing for a fortune or can sing, and even that. But not that the man is risking his life and hiding something from her that will turn her world upside down. The two noticed the girl was distracted, reprimanded her, but didn't allow her to exceed her tone. Sienna realized they weren't going to do anything to her, and most likely just came to substitute teach for a day. She didn't bother to tell me that she had learned everything a long time ago. There might be a lot of questions. So, she had to say a few mistakes and err on the side of a bad grade for today. It only pleased them. They enjoyed giving a bad mark. Though if they had only known that he was better versed in the subject than every one of them, no one would have laughed. At some point, the man she already knew, he thought they weren't burdening them enough with assignments and decided to double them up. He warned me that he was going to assign a lot more homework, and the other one stopped him immediately and said that this is not the way to do it. Such loads are not for their age, and it is important to remember that. The children began to observe the conflict. They even argued about who would win. It would depend on how they would spend the rest of the day, whether they would study or go for a normal walk, although for Shinna it would be no problem. She would solve the task in a matter of minutes, but for Leonardo it was a little different. He's just starting to get into the subject and wouldn't want to figure it out on his own at home. That's why they invented classes and paid teachers salaries to teach it to them at designated times. Anyway, the girl will be able to help him. She's more confused about what will happen if those two come tomorrow and the day after that. With them is very comfortable and do not even want to think about learning. One of them is still more or less normal, but the other has no idea what they can fix and what is already too much. And in general, it's very strange that there are two of them here and not one. Why do you need two teachers? Because everyone has their own opinion, and because of that only waste time. The man insists that the more they study and devote time to it, the better the result will be. Although in reality, it doesn't really feel like help, but rather like bullying. Sienna suggested a compromise. If he wants to burden them with studying, he can do it now and not leave it to them to deal with it at home. That's the right and best option. She explained that this is his job and direct responsibility. The easiest thing to do is to assign a lot of stuff, teach nothing, and expect good knowledge and then give terrible grades. His approach is too wrong, and she wasn't even ashamed to say it. At that moment, she didn't care what he thought. Because it's true. Maybe he realizes it himself. He's just doing it out of spite. He just looked back with that look, as if he had nothing more to say and no more arguments to make. The man believed in himself too much. He thought that if he communicated with children, he could easily control them, and they would not dare to object even if they were right. The girl was not as shy as he thought. She came here to study, and with a teacher like that, it's just impossible. It's better to do something else or hire a tutor. Surprisingly, he listened to her and silently gave her a normal assignment. She has to read the paragraph and explain in her own words what she understood from it. The boy must do the same. They will decide between themselves who will be first and who will be second. There's only one complication. They have to do it on time. Whoever can do it fastest gets a point higher, and whoever is last gets a point lower. The man also took a watch that makes a sound every second, and it's very distracting. It had only been a few minutes, and Sienna had already made it. She quickly raised her hand and said she was ready to respond. She could see that the boy was only halfway there, so there was no point in waiting for him, having to raise her hand as soon as she was ready for it. At first, he praised her for her speed. It sounded very nice, but immediately the man managed to ruin it. He offered to test how ridiculous her answers would be. As soon as he looked at the sheet, his face reddened to the point where it looked like it was about to crack like a tomato. His colleague didn't quite understand what was going on and decided to clarify what the problem was. He expected to see an error or some gross violations, but he didn't see anything like that. She answered absolutely perfectly, with all the details and explanations that there was not a single question about her work. Everything was done flawlessly, from start to finish. They literally have no words. The strict teacher even forgot that he was strict, began to admire the work, and at the same time, felt terrible, because even he does not know as much as she knows. He's always had huge memory problems, and the girl only read once and memorized every word. She can retell a paragraph like a poem and never make a mistake. The second teacher started to praise her as if she were his own child. He is genuinely surprised and even proud of her. Sienna thought at first that they would definitely find a lot of mistakes, give her a bad grade, and kick her out of the office. But everything happened exactly the opposite. They didn't find anything to pick on, although they tried very hard to do it. That man? He wants so badly to embarrass her and prove that he can't think of anything better to do than arrange a class tomorrow where there will be more assignments. They will be harder, which she will definitely not be able to handle. Sienna didn't refuse, on the contrary. She's only interested in testing her knowledge and proving that they are very much wrong about her and underestimating her. It's interesting to see their reaction when the answers are the same, without a single mistake. Her friend is also waiting for this moment, although he is very far behind. But he does not care. He is much more interested in watching her friend defeat these crazy people. He begins to support her and is very happy that the next class will be unusual, rather competitive and interesting. Sienna didn't mind getting involved. She realized that she hadn't wasted her time on this before. Now she could really use it now. Meanwhile, the grandmother and the father are having a very serious conversation, and they met without the child on purpose, so it would be quicker and more productive. They started with how the woman would treat the girl, or rather how her father would want her to be treated. The mom might hate her, but it would be nice if she at least pretended to treat her normally. At that age, children are very susceptible, and if you hate and don't hide it from the beginning, there may be problems in the future. Sienna won't be able to meet anyone, will be afraid of people, and will be alone. And in the meantime, the teacher also came in. He was very much in the way, but the woman allowed him to come in and asked him what he wanted. He began to tell her that Sienna was a very clever girl, that there was not a single question in the discipline with which to surprise and compose her. It was good to hear even the lady. The father didn't go into it. He didn't doubt it. But what really bothered him was the family relationship between them, especially as far as the grandmother and granddaughter were concerned. He's not going to leave until they've talked all the way through, and he's heard what he came here to hear. It should be fine, at least. But her coming of age, her psyche is not yet strong, and it's important to keep it safe. It is truly incomprehensible to him how she can be so cold. Personally, he is partial even to other children, and she is alienated even from her own granddaughter. It's a vicious circle. They can't figure out one thing first and then start on another. They talk about their own things and thus only waste time. You can admire forever how a man takes care of his daughter and even changes other people for her. He only wants the best for her. Conditions, attitudes, terms, and everything else he used to need for himself. It's interesting to see the situation where these two are standing opposite each other. One is making the world a better place for the girl, and the other is doing the opposite. If you remember, he started hating her for no reason, literally on nothing, without understanding the situation. Maybe no one notices it, but the man is very aware of who treats her how. In front of her, her father ignores it and says everything is fine. But he himself has been protecting Sienna for a long time now and watching every move of her enemies. Nothing is impossible for him when it comes to his daughter's safety and health. If they are in such conditions, it is his direct responsibility to make sure that the girl does not feel it and does not feel a single drop of negativity in her direction. At some point, probably because of a hard day, He didn't want to waste time talking. He didn't want to hint at anything. He said directly that it seemed that he wasn't welcome here on the first day and wanted to harm him. He had no idea how. But anyway, he warned that he would be preparing for the answer and even advised to prepare for it properly. It was impossible to think that this conversation would come so quickly and he would tell her directly. The woman at first did not even know how to react, but when she realized that there was nothing to hide, she smiled and eagerly began to wait to see what he was capable of and what he had learned in all this time. Surprisingly, as it turned out, she didn't care when he realized it. She's ready for any outcome and even glad that now everything is out in the open and there are no secrets between them. The next day came. Leonardo thought about Sienna all evening and decided to meet her early in the morning. He found out that she usually walks in the garden and could not miss this opportunity. Lately, she's had maids with her. They guard her, and at first they wouldn't even let me get too close to her. The girl didn't understand what was going on, and when she saw him, she asked the helpers to stand aside and explained that it was just a friend she had met a few days ago when she first came to class. He felt a little uncomfortable. He thought things would be a lot easier, and she already has her own security that only makes things more complicated. He doesn't want anyone to be present during their meetings and hear what they talk about. After all, maybe someday he wants to talk about something personal. He wasn't even shy and asked how necessary it was to walk around with security in his yard. Nothing here bodes ill. If this was at an event, he wouldn't have a single question. But in this situation, it's a bit odd. It sounded a little harsh, but it already is, as it is. Sienna hopes he's in a good mood and hasn't come to ruin her mood. It's very suspicious, but usually he talks to her differently in the office. But today he's not like that. Not like himself. So be it. The helper stepped aside. They did not embarrass anyone and began to talk about their own. Sienna warned that if he had bad news or wanted to discuss something bad, it would be better to do it another day and enjoy today and not upset each other. I've had enough problems lately. I didn't need something new, and he's been going through the same thing himself. Suddenly, he took out of his pocket some jewelry. It is unusual in the form of wings, which does not look like anything. The girl has never seen such a thing, and of course did not hold back, asked what it is and for whom. She looks at this piece of jewelry and can't get enough of it. She can't even imagine how much it might cost. Unexpectedly, but he starts coming closer and closer, asking me to hold out my hands as if hinting at something. She had some unusual mixed feelings that cannot be described in words. This thing is so weightless that it's scary to even touch it. The peculiarity of this jewelry is that it has healing power. You just need to think about it, and it immediately works for its owner. This piece is so amazing it is priceless, and to hold it in your hands is an honor. Some people can't even dream of it. She was so much surprised that there were just no words to say anything. The girl even forgot to ask where he got it from and what it all meant. At this point, he started to get very nervous, as if he was afraid to confess something. He even started touching his ear and scratching it, that he scratched it until it was red in color. And then it turns out that jewelry has not only healing abilities, depending on the person who holds it, adds another one. For example, she has the ability to read people's thoughts. When he wants to say something, unknowingly tells the truth without realizing it. So she read the thoughts that Leonardo is waiting for her death and is already planning a plan to do it. He only pretended to meet her by chance, found out she was planning on going to class, coaxed everyone to confirm that he's been a student there for a long time, became a friend, and this is just the beginning of everything he's planning. The boy said it out loud, and for him, these couple of seconds passed unnoticed. It turns out that the girl found out something she shouldn't have, and he doesn't even know about it. I wonder what she'll do with this information, and how she'll get back at him anyway. For now, she made like nothing had happened, but she decided to herself that he'd still answer for everything, and she'd see who won. It's just unbelievable. Just now, Leonardo helped her find out who he really is and made a huge mistake. Sienna has seen her enemy in the face and will try to make him regret it so much, and all the things he planned to do got boomeranged in his direction. Everyone should get what they deserve.